you very much, Minister. This long-awaited Dáil debate on fisheries sector has finally arrived, allowing us to shed light on the EU's clandestine actions that undermine the interests of Irish fishing industry. The man at the helm, our Minister, you Minister there, for Agriculture and the Marine, appears to be complicit in these actions, aligning himself with unelected bureaucrats in Brussels, rather than standing up for Irish coastal communities and the fishing sector. The latest manoeuvres are set out, being entertained and facilitated by the Minister, involves EU negotiations with Iceland to surrender more fishing rights in Irish waters. It is deeply troubling that an Irish Fisheries Minister would engage in such a deal, allowing the EU to grant Iceland access to our fishing waters. This secretive agreement is not only objectionable, but also lacks transparency. The deal, shrouded in secrecy, promises our fishermen an additional 15 million tonnes of blue whiting quota this year, but at a steep cost, allowing Icelandic crews to fish in our waters. This is akin to offering a child a single sweet in exchange for all their pocket money. What exasperates the situation is the clandestine nature of these talks, conducted without any consultation with the local sector, despite the severe implications. Currently, foreign vessels catch over 85% of the fish in Irish territorial waters, while our fishermen can only watch from the sideline or have their vessels moored at piers due to lack of quota. This new deal threatens to worsen the situation. The lack of advocacy for our industry is evident, unlike our counterparts in other EU countries. We do not seem to be fighting for our sector. If this new deal proceeds, Iceland, a non-EU member, will be able to catch almost the same amount of blue whiting in Irish waters as we do. This one-sided deal benefits only Iceland, leaving us with no comparable catch in Icelandic waters. Ireland stands to lose significantly from the deal, with countries like Denmark and Netherlands and Sweden all gaining more than Ireland. This highlights the glaring incompetence of our Fisheries Minister, who seems willing to accept any proposal thrown at him by EU officials, a fact well known in Brussels. At its core, the EU is exploiting our waters to secure better deals for other EU and non-EU states, all at Ireland's expense. This is both unbelievable and outrageous. Would the Spanish or Dutch governments ever accept such a flawed deal? There has been no input or adequate consultation by the Minister with the affected fishermen here in Ireland on this deal. The Irish fishing industry has already lost 26% of our mackerel quota to the UK due to Brexit. The Department of Marine has intentionally downsized the Irish fleet and decommissioned dozens of trawlers last year. Ireland's pelagic fish exports dropped by 45%, representing a loss of 56 million to the Irish economy. It's high time for you, Minister, to come clean about the talks. The Irish fishing industry and the public deserve transparency, and a Minister who will fight for their interests. It is baffling to see our Minister and his officials advancing an agenda driven by the EU Commission, an agenda that does not serve Ireland's interests, but instead favours Iceland, a non-EU member. We are deeply concerned that this concession of further foreign access to Irish waters is being negotiated behind closed doors. Why would we agree to a deal that permits Icelandic fishermen to exploit valuable blue whiting in Irish waters? Iceland has vast waters of its own and a history of arbitrarily increasing fishing quotas, leading to the depletion of its own stocks. It is unjustifiable that Irish fishermen should bear the cost of this. A deal with Iceland must be replicable, and this current deal threatens to further devastate the Irish fishing industry. Granting access to another non-EU country would further jeopardise the livelihoods of Irish fishermen and the sustainability of the stock. We fear a repeat of the Brexit giveaway that occurred under this Minister's watch. Icelandic boats a substantial fishing fleet, including factory ships, that will deplete our stock. It is unjust to grant them rights to fish in our waters. The EU has already sacrificed Ireland in the Brexit negotiations, resulting in severe repercussions following the disastrous transfer of Irish fishing quotas to the EU. Ireland has decommissioned 39 vessels and downsized our national fleet. Now we find ourselves in the inconceivable situation of granting a third country access, while Ireland's small fleet and onshore factories grapple with reduced fishing quotas. According to reports, Icelandic fishing of blue whiting in Irish waters would yield that country a benefit of 22.5 million, with no benefit for Ireland. We struggle to understand why you, Minister, and the officials are rushing an agenda driven by the EU Commission that benefits Iceland, a non-EU member. Have we not learned from past mistakes? And today I ask you, Minister, one of the few questions I have, I ask you, Minister, for the Marine, will you immediately block or veto any EU deal with Iceland? The Irish fishing industry and the public deserve better a minister who will fight for us. So will you block that deal?
Yeah, if you've been listening to what I said at the start, Deputy Collins, you would have seen, and I would have laid out the negotiations in relation to and the engagement with the Commission in relation to Iceland, and how I, as a Minister representing Ireland, have been the one who have been taking a very hard line in relation to refusing to agree to any mandate for negotiations or for conducting an agreement with Iceland. And as a result of that, there hasn't been one. I've laid that out. I've often. So you obviously haven't been listening to me. I often hear ministers being accused of coming into the chambers here and reading out what was given to them. But I mean, whenever you're doing that in opposition, without listening to what actually was said, that's a different departure altogether. But listen, I have taken a clear line, Deputy Collins. In terms of these negotiations, I continue to do that, respecting the fact that our waters are what are being discussed here, obviously within the EU context, and working to make sure that in terms of the outcome of that our waters are respected, and that any access that happens would be to the benefit of the Irish fleet.
You're saying here today there's absolutely going to be no deal with Iceland. End of story. That's all I'm asking, yes or no? Yes or no, it's a simple answer. It's not a complicated one that goes on for another minute and I lose time, valuable time.
Well, it's not a simple answer, Deputy Collins.
Well, yes or no?
No, well, I mean, again, if you were aware of the way that European fisheries works, you'd know it's not a simple answer.
Iceland is not in Europe?
You'd know it's not a simple answer because things can be agreed at European level by qualified majority voting. So nobody can tell you, nobody could tell you yes or no. But what I can tell you is I've been the only one, and I, as Minister, and the approach I've taken is the reason there has been no mandate agreed at European level in relation to any engagement with Iceland. And while other member states could, should they decide, vote us down and go for QMV, they are respecting the position I'm taking at European level and the position I'm outlining, which is very much that our waters should be respected, and if there's any access to our waters, then we should be the ones that actually gain in terms of fish. That's the approach I've taken. Not all are in agreement with that approach and that those lines I have laid out. That's why there hasn't been consensus or agreement. And I have to recognise the fact that other member states are very, very much respecting the position I've taken, and as a result of that, we haven't had a mandate. And I'll continue to take that clear, coherent, strong line in relation to any engagement of this, and it's my full intention and my full hope that by doing that, we'll continue to ensure that our position is respected. And as has been the case over the last 4 years, where I've conducted negotiations on behalf of Ireland with the EU in relation to Iceland, we have improved our position each of those 4 years that I've conducted those negotiations by reducing their amount of fish caught in our waters, by reducing the access they have to our waters, and by increasing the amount of fish our fishermen have to, again, fish incrementally over those 4 years too.
Thank you, Minister. Look, there's other issues I need to talk as well. The inshore sector, the crab and the shrimps have collapsed. A lot of inshore fishermen are in dire crisis, and we met with the inshore fishing sector here in our committee recently. You said you're meeting with them. What do you intend to achieve by that meeting? Because it's, they have mortgages to pay, they have food to put on the table, they haven't the brown skin cut in months, and they're facing a serious crisis, and they feel the talking should have been done and delivery now on some package to try for their very survival. Also the European Fuel Fund. Why haven't you tapped into the European Fuel Fund like every other European country did in relation to Spanish and others? And also the piers. Look, you did mention about Keelbeg Pier is hugely important. I was down there last Saturday morning. It seems to me as if, well, I was listening from a government person below there was saying that all the money has dried up, only that they're hoping to have a meeting and we'll live horse and you get grass, but that's not going to work for the people of Keelbeg that have been suffering for quite a long time. You've been down there, the Taoiseach, when he was Taoiseach, Micheál Martin was down there, so what are you all doing? Coming down, he going up the road and nothing delivered. So the pier there hasn't been an extra block laid in the pier. And everybody blaming everybody and nobody sitting around the table and talking. And that's all that needed to be done the very first day. And I suppose the other is, the bluefin tuna. No quota for Irish fishermen.
I'm afraid you have no time for a response.